This is a smartwatch. This specifically is the new Polar Grit X2 Pro, and it's Polar's top of the line offering right now. So let's get into it, because I've been wearing this baby for over a month now, maybe closer to 2, and I have some thoughts. There's a lot built into this tiny little package. You name it, this watch can meter it. That said, right off the bat, there are quite a few things I really like about this watch. Maybe most importantly, the GPS tracking and map info is not only really impressive, I mean, there are whole detailed maps right there on your wrist, including a fair number of trails, not just streets. And the GPS tracking seems to be pretty dang accurate. Honestly, when tracking trail runs or mountain bike rides or hikes, the data collected on this watch was comparable, if not nearly identical, to data collected from other people's devices. And frankly, it was just great to look down at my watch after a hike or a ride and be able to see interpreted data like heart rate, elevation gain, and that sort of thing just right there on my wrist. Love knowing how far I went. The only data I didn't think was very accurate was the calorie burned information. I'm pretty certain that typing in my height, weight, age, and sex into the watch during setup didn't change a thing because there's no way that I burned as many calories as my watch claims that I did. In fact, when I compared the calorie burn info on my watch with that on a friend's watch who is a similar age as I am but male, his actually said he burned quite a bit fewer calories, which shouldn't be the case just generally. Men tend to burn more calories than women based solely on things like percentage of muscle mass. So that was weird. I did appreciate the battery life on this watch. When tracking shorter activities, perhaps a couple per week, I only needed to charge the watch about every week or even week and a half. That's not too shabby. But speaking of batteries, it is rechargeable, but I hate that most of these smartwatches require dedicated charging cables that don't work with a single other piece of technology ever invented. If entire countries are going after Apple for the amount of e-waste they create with their brand-specific charging cables, then how do watch and headphone manufacturers get away with it when they're all creating very specific cables for their products? It irritates me. Is all I'm saying. I hate having to lug one charging cable for my watch, one for my headphones, another for my phone, another for my camera battery charger, and on every single time I go anywhere. My cable roll is starting to look like Medusa on an extremely bad hair day. Did you just turn to stone? No? Great. Glad you're still with us. Now, that isn't a Polar-specific issue. That's an industry-wide issue. So this isn't me ragging on Polar gear specifically, just the state of the tech industry. Could we all get on board with, the same charging ports, please? But back to the watch itself. Now, it has quite a few buttons, 5. To be precise. That's more than some of the other tracking watches I've tested in the past, though to be fair, like I said, those were either off-brand or fairly old, at least where technology is concerned. But all of those buttons did mean it took a while to get the hang of what buttons did what things and had what functionality and which ones to press in any of the 100 screen views and options. All I'm saying is that it might take you a minute to move through screens fluidly, especially when you are actively moving. For example, when I was recording a run, it took me a few times to figure out how to switch between the screen that was showing me my distance and time per mile to a screen with the actual time of day. I paused and started laps multiple times. And there are plenty of screens and viewing options on this watch, not just where data is concerned, but you can actually customize what's on your home screen along with the time, how you like the time displayed, even a couple of simple color themes, all of which I didn't expect, but really quite like. It makes it so that you can display the exact things you actually want to see and have quicker access to, more personalized. For example, I want the date, the local temperature, and a timer on my watch face so that all I have to do is look down or tap to see the information I most often want to reference. It's the same with the drop-down menu. When you drag from the top of the watch face, you can customize what features you'd like access to. Like, I have a countdown timer, do not disturb function, airplane airplane mode and a flashlight on mine. Speaking of, I actually really appreciate easy access to a do not disturb function. It makes it really easy to silence notifications, but also keep the watch face backlight from turning on if you're wearing it while you sleep or, I don't know, in a dark movie theater. But you can also customize what the swipe screens display when you swipe left or right on the watch face. Like, I chose a media player so I can play or pause music quickly and easily without reaching for my phone. You do have to have your phone close by because there aren't any offline options for music. Then the weather forecast for the day, navigation function with maps, a quick look at my sleep recharge to see how I slept, but we'll get to that in a minute. And my activity level for the day, which, speaking of, I'm not sure that I fully trust. I set my activity goal for every day as moderate, mostly because I didn't want my watch regularly guilting me into taking a walk or getting up from my desk. But the accuracy of that activity level is dubious at best. Some days I wouldn't get a notification that I had met my activity level until very late in the day after I had, I don't know, hiked 4 miles. And other days I would get the notification at 10 a.m. while sitting at my desk after not having left the house. I don't know the ins and outs of how this thing logs activity, but I wouldn't set your daily habits by this watch alone. As for the sleep tracking, I at first thought the functionality and data collection was wildly inaccurate. I mean, my watch was telling me almost every morning that I essentially got a terrible night's sleep. Most of the time, I felt like it was at least adequate, if not perfectly fine. But now I'm not so sure. After testing the watch for a few weeks, we got a new mattress, and all of a sudden, my sleep report got way better. So I'm not saying that I'm going to base my mood for the day on how my watch tells me that I slept, but it does make me wonder if perhaps it's more accurate than I initially thought, and my old mattress was as crappy as I thought it might be. Now, there are plenty of other features on this watch that are really quite handy, and I found a welcome addition. There are some simple fitness tests and that sort of thing, but I more appreciated actually the simple breathing app that you can start at any time of day, and it will vibrate you through a breathing exercise while you're sitting at your desk or lounging on the couch or, I don't know, standing in line at the grocery store. It's honestly not a terrible way to take a minute for yourself to breathe and try to reduce some day-to-day anxiety. I was surprised how much I liked it. On the downside, though, this watch did tend to disconnect just randomly and occasionally frequently from my phone. I would just look down at my watch and it would show that the two were no longer linked. Sometimes it wouldn't even tell me. Just wouldn't load an accurate weather forecast. Sometimes that was just a matter of reconnecting via Bluetooth, but at least a few times a month, I would have to go in and totally relink my phone and watch via the app, or restart my phone or watch entirely. I still have no idea what causes this, but to be honest, it doesn't happen quite often enough to motivate me to look into it all that deeply. And honestly, something they should probably try to fix in firmware updates. Now, one other thing that I appreciated and shows that Polar is thinking of users of all types is the inclusion in every package of 2 different watch bands. The one that comes attached to it for larger wrists, but also in the box is a smaller band for narrower wrists, which may fit many women better. So that's actually a really nice touch. You can even prioritize and customize what type of training you want to be at the top of your list when you record fitness sessions. For example, at the top of my list of options is hiking, followed by mountain biking, followed by trail running. But there are also options for swimming, boxing, judo, walking, indoor cycling, you name it. Badminton, I think, was on there. Literally, if your body is moving, this can track it. Now, there is some smart functionality that is missing from this watch, like contactless payments, voice controls, and emergency alerts, like if you crash while cycling. Basically, yeah, it's a solid GPS and training watch, but it doesn't have a lot of the smart functionality of smartwatches or even other top-tier GPS watches like from Garmin. That said, if you don't need those functions, then yeah, this is a pretty solid and pretty dang capable watch. Like I said, it's top of Polar's line right now. And in terms of accuracy, GPS tracking, and training, it's really impressive. So basically, it comes down to what you want in a watch and for what price, of course, because This one is pretty close to the top of the pricing bracket for smart or GPS watches at $750. You may get a few more features for the price with other watches, but frankly, this is a pretty feature-rich watch, and Polar diehards are gonna have little to complain about, I think. Honestly, if this is also your first smartwatch, I'm impressed. Hopefully Polar does work out some of the bugs like the frequent disconnection issue, and most folks are hoping to see the price come down a bit, but otherwise, not a bad option, honestly. I'm gonna use it. I do think it's probably more geared toward athletes who are serious about improving and tracking their output than just casual hikers, but hey, if you got the budget, this watch is gonna knock it out of the park. Have you tried the Polar Grit X2 Pro? Have you tested it against maybe other smartwatches or GPS watches? Or do you have an argument for why your favorite GPS watch is better? Please do tell us about it in the comments. I'm actually super curious. We'll obviously put a link to the watch down there as well if you want to check it out for yourself or treat yourself to a new GPS watch. But while you're down there, feel free to hit the thumbs up and click subscribe so you don't miss any more gear reviews. Also, did you know we have a Patreon? As a supporter, one of the delightful things you get access to is bloopers of me not being able to say the name of this watch. Good stuff, right? So feel free to go check that out and consider supporting us, or just give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Drop us a nice note in the comments. That's also quite helpful. And then, whether or not you have a fancy GPS watch, get outside and wander on.